Hello, it's Pete here again with another vlog, and today we're looking at a wonderful, wonderful die set from Tim Holtz Chapter 2. I'm talking about abstract faces. Now, this set has really taken on a life of its own online. Look at some of Tim's videos, look at what his makers have been doing. It's incredible. And I'm going to show you today how I've developed some ideas with this. I'm going to show you some examples, and we're going to see how those ideas develop over time. So let's get cracking. So this is the set, and you can see here, this is the way that it's presented on the packaging. Now, you might think that this is how they're meant to be used, but as with Tim, as always, this is just the start. There are so many ways that you can take these because they're just great shapes. Now, if you remember media marks and was it scribbles and splats? Scribbles and that was a wonderful one. If you've got that, these are all going to work together. You can mix and match. You can bring them in and out. These are just shapes and marks. This is an example of the dies that you're going to get. So there are 19 dies, as I said, in total. And let's start thinking of these as shapes and how we can utilize these shapes, because it's not just about the faces, but of course that's our bread and butter. Now down here I have all the dies spread out in front of me, and you know, you guys out there, you're designers, I'm a designer, this is our bread and butter. This is where we really get to express our creativity, because we've got all of this to work with. Question is, how do we go about that? Now, let's just sweep those off to one side, because I'm going to show you some examples of the work that I've been doing. When I started off, I went very much like what was on the packaging. So let's reach down. The first one I did, and this brings in bold text number 2 as well. So check that out, and check out Tim's Chapter 2 collection. It's fabulous. Now this one, obviously I used distress inks to add the color. This one I used Sizzix creamy acrylics to add the color, and I used the bold text to cut an aperture in the front there. Now that was my starting point. So I was looking at the packaging thinking, how do I represent these? But then I took it a step further. I thought about, you know, kind of like mixed media makes. And this is something that I did. The background is embossed with one of the embossing folders from Chapter 2. And we started to use some different textures, some different techniques, some different kinds of acrylics, some resists, some stamping going on there. Then I looked at something like this, which has got a kind of a modern, kind of Mayan look and feel. And again, some different techniques, some faux embossing. Then I thought about metallics. I got my Sizzix luster waxes out, started to apply some of those over the top of a grungy background. So that's another way of using it. These are very abstract, very mixed media in their look and feel. But then I turned it all around and I thought, well, what about those shapes? What about those basic shapes? What else can I do with this? So if I put those to one side for just a second, I did this because I've always been a fan of Henri Matisse. I love his work as an artist, and I thought, well, let's do an artist series. So I just started putting shapes around, playing around with shapes, playing around with color, using the Sizzix Muted collection and our standard cardstock collection. So that's just random shapes, leaving lots of white space. So that's a nice way of using those dies as well. And then somebody said to me while I was working with these, they said, and they looked at the packaging and they said, oh, it's kind of like Picasso. And I thought, you know what? We've done a Matisse. Let's do a Picasso. So that's what we did then. I looked at Picasso's work online. I looked at some of the colors that he was using, and this is very, very Picasso-esque, but it's using all of those shapes. You can see I brought in some different techniques as well. More of that in a second. But I ran with that theme. I started to get excited about this. So Picasso, who next? How about Andy Warhol? I love Warhol's work. I love the repetitious nature of it. I like the way that it's flat and graphic. And this one, of course, is very similar to some of Warhol's Marilyn Monroe series. So we've used all those Warhol colors. We've used the way that he repeats that over and over again. And all the quotes you see here are quotes from the artist, and we've got the signature as well. So continuing the theme, then we have Frida Kahlo. Now, wonderful Mexican artist, because I had this die. And it's kind of, it could be so many things. It could be an abstract seagull, but to me it looked like a monobrow, and Frida Kahlo famously did sport the monobrow. So that's what I did. I added some flowers, I put some foliage in the background. It screams Frida Kahlo, this one. I particularly like that one, but you know, other artists, famous imagery. I thought, what can I do next? And then we came up with the girl with the pearl earring. Now, I've kind of stretched what I was doing earlier. I've used some different techniques to get these shapes. These shapes do not feature in the set, but you can make these shapes using the set, because if you look at the headdress coming down, that is the heart. All right, see how that fits over there? And then if you take this heart and you cut it again, at that point, you get this lovely shape. So this, obviously, the body, you can see, is the heart again, which we've just trimmed off at the base. So some of the techniques, very simple. It's just taking the initial idea and then seeing how far you can stretch it. Couple more. Bringing it up to date. We wanted to get some contemporary sort of pop icons, as it were. And this one is Madonna, Crazy for You. We used some of our opulent cardstock. I used the swirl from the Scribbles and Splat, which I talked about earlier. And then yesterday, I was playing around with this. I was preparing for this video, and I thought to myself, well, you know what? Here's one that I hadn't done. And it is, of course, the late, great Amy Winehouse. So similar techniques, just playing around with different, you know, those lovely scribbles. I mean, Amy never had a bad hair day in her life. It was all part of her look. But all these lovely scribbles, all those things, keeping it quite flat, using those lovely bold colors in the background to bring the foreground action to the fore. And again, a lovely rose in her hair. So I want to talk to you about some of the techniques we use, show you how we got from A to B, and just give you a quick 101 for using this wonderful die set. So let's move those samples out of the way for a second and bring in my switch machine. So I've prepared a few bits of card ready. These are all from the Sizzix cardstock pack. If you haven't seen the cardstock, oh, you are missing out on a treat, you really are. And we've got some black as well. Now, what I did, my starting point for this, we're going to make one of those Marilyns. I took these wonderful swirls, scribbles, call them what you will. I die cut them several times, and I attached them to yellow card. So, next up, I'm going to start by making the hair. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the dies over kind of interesting bits of scribble. Where's my other one? I've got it here. There we are. So I I like those areas. I'm going to put those now through my machine. And we'll take the plates. Of course, I'm using my switch machine today. If you haven't come across the switch before, then go over to our website or our YouTube page. Check out the videos introducing the switch. It's been incredibly popular, and that is somewhat of an understatement. So we're going to turn the machine on. There's just the button on the top. Open the front, nice soft opening. And once the machine's on, you don't need to do anything else. You can make a cup of tea, you can go away, you can tidy up all the mess that you've made. Let the machine do the work for you. There we are. So there's a little door at the back which opens up. and out it comes. So now we've die cut 3 shapes and we've got the detail from the swirls, as I said before. So there we are, that's lovely. So those are the 3 shapes that I wanted, and we'll put this off to one side for a second. Now, I'm going to start. We're going to make the face. So let's put those to one side, and we're going to cut some of the detail as well, because there's a face style, and I'm going to choose this one here. Now I've got my black, so there's even a die to make a little beauty spot. And don't forget, when you're die cutting as well, we tend to look at things and forget that those little shapes inside. Let's take a look at this actually. Those little shapes inside as well. We can use those to good effect. We can use those to add details. So you see there's a little teardrop shape there, and I use that for the detail on the pearl in the girl's earring. Let's have a look, see what I mean. So you see there? You see the highlights on the pearl? That's how I got those, by taking just these little pieces out of the center of there. So pop that to one side just for a second. So I've got my beauty spot. I want to get, we'll get the eye. We'll get this nose, which runs down the center. And how about the lips? That's it now. I also, at the same time, I want to cut a little bit of blue, because that's going to be like where the eyeshadow is. In a very Warholian way. If that is such a word, if it isn't, I've just coined it. So again, place it into the machine, let the machine do all the work, run it through, and then start thinking about the next bit, which is, of course, putting this all together. Now, let's take those pieces out, and it's a really super clean cut, as we've come to expect, of course, from any Sizzix machine, whether it be the Big Shot, the Big Shot Express, the Foldaway, the Plus, the Pro. Always getting that quality cut. So let's take those little bits out. We'll take my beauty spot as well. We'll put that over there where we're not going to lose it. Let's just put these to one side. And there we are. Now with the lips, I want to do something. I want to put the blue detail in the lips. I know we don't usually have blue in the lips, but this is Andy Warhol, remember? So all the normal rules are out the window. And another thing, let's get this back. This is going to be the eyeshadow. So what I want to do with this, I want to sort of trim it using the eye die so that it fits in place. Rather than putting one over the top of the other, I can trim it away so it fits nice and flush. And again, make my sandwich and into the machine. So as it comes the other side, you can see what I mean here. So if I take that away, you can see that's the bit that I wanted trimmed to size. And the lips itself, I just want the inside. So I'm going to leave them in the die for now rather than take them out. So that's all my cutting done for now. And we're going to start putting that together. But I'm going to leave my machine here because there is one other thing that I want to show you before we finish. Now, let's take the face. That's our starting point. And of course, the hair, very, very important. Let's have a look at the original, which we have back here. So you can see how the hair fits all around the face. So let's take some glue. I'm going to take some express glue and I think for now I'll use this piece of spare card. I just want to put some of that onto the card like that, rather than apply the glue to these very small die cut pieces, because that can get messy. I'm going to do it this way around. So I'll take the top and I'll add that kind of like so. Then coming down the side, doesn't look like much yet, and this is where we need to use a little bit of imagination. I'm going to take this one and I want to pop that under there. So again, bring it into my glue and pop that in place already. Just with that, just with adding those two pieces, you can see it's starting to come together. Not recognizable as the person yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And there we have it. So that's like Marilyn's curls, where they come from the center and cascade down over her face. So straight away, if you ask somebody who that was, you know, you probably get a 50-50. Some people might guess. Some people may not. Actually, it looks like my mum in the 50s. She won't thank me for saying, but there we have it. Now, let's bring in the nose, because this is this is the feature around which everything radiates. So we want to get that sort of in the center, like so. And because it's a Warhol, because it's an abstract face, we don't want to, you know, it's not going to be absolutely 100% photographic representation, but we want to get as close as we can. Now, with the eyes, how you put these eyes is very, very important. So I want a slight downturn like that, and I want it coming off the edge of the face rather than trying to fit everything on perfectly. So we'll take that eye and we'll put it about there. Now it's really starting to become recognizable. And remember this bit that we actually trimmed to size? That's going to drop in place. Because it was cut with the same die, we're going to get that perfect fit. Now the mouth, this is coming off to one side. So maybe something like that at a slight angle. There. Now let's get the detail. Remember, I did die cut the mouth from blue, so I want to pop those little bits out. I'm going to use, you can use your die pick, you can use your die brush. Today I'm using these lovely Sizzix tweezers, which kind of do the job for me because I've got them in my hand already. There we are, there's one, and then the second. Let's pick up a little bit of glue, and it makes it so much easier. I don't know how you guys apply your glue. I don't know what glues you use. I hope you're using express glue. But you know, by adding it to, some people use the back of the hand. My hands are too hairy. I know Jess likes to use the back of her hand. You can use your media mat if you have it to hand. You can use whatever surface you have. I'm just using a spare piece of card today just to keep everything in shot. Now this is the last bit. This is that lovely beauty spot, without which it wouldn't quite be Marilyn, would it? So there we are. I'll take that now. I'll add some glue to the back of that and place it onto this square. Now, of course, to put 4 squares together, what we need to do is trim away the top. But once we've done that, we have this. You can have the 4, you can have 8, you can have 16, you can have 3 in a row. It's entirely up to you. You are the maker. It's all about your imagination. It's all about how you want to use these. You can do it in a mixed media, you can do it monochromatic, you can do it any old which way you please. And that's how I went from A to B with that one. So you can see a lot of the techniques that I've used actually work in this kind of way. So you can take those techniques and you can stretch them, you can make them your own. But let's take a look at some of the faces, what I've done with the faces themselves. If I've got 2 pieces of pink card, again from our Sizzix cardstock range, and I'm going to cut both at once because these dies are very simple. Thinlit style like this will happily cut through 2 layers. Obviously, the more complex, the more blade on the die, the less it's going to cut, but for 2 layers, not a problem. So again, into my switch machine and run that through. Incidentally, one of the things that I love, I adore about this switch machine, which we might not think is important, but when you're working, when you've got a workspace like this, and it comes out, you can actually, when it comes out the other side, you can place that on the top of your machine and start to take, or if you're putting the dies onto the plates, you can work on the top of your machine, so it keeps your making area clean. But for the purposes of today, I'm actually going to work on my cutting mat. Now, let's have a look at these 2 shapes. See, cut super clean through both layers. Now, if I want to get a kind of a shadow across the face, because we know if you look at a face, I mean, I've got light coming from both sides, but if the light was on one side only, one side would be in shadow, so it would be a different kind of skin tone. And the way that I replicate that, or try to replicate that, is I will put the die back on there. Oh, and remember the girl with the pearl earring. Let's get that heart out as well. Let's use this bit and show you how I got that. So I only need a little bit of this. All right, let's make the sandwich again. Pop it into my machine. And there we have it. So that comes out that side. So see what we've done here. We've cut that into 2 pieces, not in half, but 2 pieces. And with the heart itself, what I'm going to do now is take this and place it over there like that. So again, I'm using the same shape, but I'm die cutting a die cut. So run that through. And what I'm trying to get here, while it's running through, let's take a look. See this bit that comes down here? That's what I'm trying to replicate this time around. And that technique, once you understand that technique, you start looking at these dies in a different way, and you start thinking about the possibilities there. Because what we've done, we've taken that heart and let's take that away, and we've got that. You see, that's the same kind of shape. Different shade of yellow, but nevertheless the same kind of shape. So that's how I built these shapes. That's how I did the headdress, this little piece as well, by die cutting the die cut, very often using the very same die. Faces, we'll go back to the faces just a second. Now, what we've got here, we wanted 2 tones. We wanted 2 sort of skin tones, and let's get some glue. And of course, because we use the same die, we're getting perfect registration. Now, I could have even taken this one and put that on top of the pink. It's entirely up to you. But that is what I'm trying to get. So if we look at the Frida Kahlo, for example, you see, that's how I got that look. That's how we did that. It's a nice technique, and it does bear fruit. So that's just a rundown of some of the main techniques that I've used to create these different artworks. And that's what I said at the outset, is that this die set is a blank canvas for you, for me, for any designer, and you can take it where you want. You can bring in other die sets, you know, some of Tim's, like I said, the Scribbles and Splat, or the mark making set. They all work together. They all work separately. Just take those shapes, play around with them, see what you can get. Now, of course, when we talk about chapters, this is chapter 2. Why do we say chapter? Well, a chapter is a quarter of the year. We have chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4. But a chapter also suggests that it's part of a story. And that's what we're doing. We're telling a story. So this is chapter 2. Now you could take some dies from a previous chapter and you can use them together. And there will be future chapters in our story. And Tim thinks very much like that. He's got, okay, we've got the abstract faces, but now next year there's going to be something that comes out which accompanies these, which enhances them, which works with them, which works independently of them, but we're telling a story, and it's about his creative journey, my creative journey, and ultimately your creative journey. And that's what the chapter idea is all about. I hope you've enjoyed this little trip through the abstract faces. I have to say, it's one of my favorite die sets. It's been absolutely wonderful. Check them out. Look at all the inspiration that you can find on our website. And there we have it. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon.